So you're thinking about spiritual direction. I think that's something that's great. Now, why are you looking for spiritual direction, or what is spiritual direction? What are we looking for when we go to a spiritual director? Well, I think that in spiritual direction, there's kind of two main categories, but we're always looking to fulfill God's will in our lives, right? And so there's kind of two different categories for finding God's will in our lives. First, and this might be where a lot of people, uh, seek out spiritual direction, especially in a first moment, and it's when we're preparing for some big decision, especially state of life. So like if you're trying to become, if you think God might be calling you to become a religious, or married life, or becoming a priest, these might be some different reasons that get people into spiritual direction, preparing for that big decision. But that's not the only use for spiritual direction. Spiritual direction can also be very helpful because we're always trying to look at how God is working in our lives and find His will for us, now in this present moment. I'm a priest. I've been a priest for over 9 years now, and I still seek out spiritual direction because it's important to continue to grow. And so when we're in that context of spiritual direction without having some huge question on the horizon, what are some of the things to look for? Well, we want to make sure that there's a good connection between me and the spiritual director. But at the same time, it's important to remember that there are three essential people in every spiritual direction. And the first one, and the most important one, is the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is the one who is creating our spiritual life and helping us to grow in holiness, and the one who is calling us to holiness and bringing us along. So the Holy Spirit, key, most essential element, person for any spiritual direction. Second, we can look at the directee, the person who is seeking spiritual direction. And this person should be open. We're looking for a certain prayer life, receptivity to what the Holy Spirit is doing in his or her life, and then also openness with the third person, the spiritual director. And the spiritual director should be somebody who has a certain amount of experience in spiritual life and also experience in guiding other souls or training in this area, because it's important. And what is the spiritual director trying to do? Is the spiritual director, just kind of bossing along this soul that comes? No, this spiritual director is trying to help this person discover the beauty, the wonders of God's will. Now, it implies that there is prayer life in the person who's seeking spiritual direction, right? Because the most normal thing to be talking about during spiritual direction is what is going on in my own prayer life, and what do I think God might be asking of me. And then the spiritual director is there to help guide and make sure that he or she is moving along the right path, as well as clarifying doubts. Maybe, a lot of times when somebody's kind of starting out on spiritual life, it might be education, even in some basic things of catechesis. And then as spiritual life progresses, we'll probably educating in some things of spiritual life. I also like to touch a little bit on Christian anthropology personally, because I think it's something that's helpful to know who is man, like who am I in relation to God. And there's just so many wonderful things to be exploring together in a spiritual direction. Now, does everybody need spiritual direction? I think that's another great question, and one that we will treat in the future. Hope that you like this. Please like and subscribe. God bless.